Okay, I want to do a quick one on what's referred to as environment variables. And so you guys know variables. Variables obviously store data. And so as the name suggests, these are variables that store data about the environment. And so as one example of that, the environment might be, well, are you developing in your development environment or in production, right? Those are different environments, right? Locally on your laptop or in production. I'm going to call this folder my .env demo. And so that's what we're going to be working with is called a .env file. And so this .env file is where you put those variables, these environment variables, again, that speak to the environment that you're in. And you put a lot of different secure or sensitive variables in this file that's called the .env. And so as we have been doing, we can initialize our npm package just kind of with the defaults here. And so I can kind of zoom in. And I'm going to create a new file here that's no file name. It's just starts with a .env. And this is going to be the file that we place these variables, right, that speak to sensitive information about your environment. Things like API keys, are you in production, what's your password for your database, sensitive things, right? So a .env, to be clear, is not something you want to put on GitHub. If you ever find yourself putting your .env on GitHub, that's a mistake. You should put that in the git ignore. You should ignore the .env file, okay? And in here, we have an index.js as kind of our starting file. So I'll go ahead and boot up my index.js file and install Express to get a web server framework that allows us to kind of spin up a quick web server. So we've brought in Express, and I'll hit the Express docs real quick to get my hello world example. And this will just be using the common JS syntax, the require to bring in Express. Okay, so this is a real basic Express hello world demonstration. And if I were to spin this up, I could do node index.js at this point. And you can see example app listening on port 3000. But that's not the point of this. The point of this is that we can store variables in this file. I'm going to show you how to both store the variable and how to read the variable. That's all I'm going to do here. Put data in, pull data out. So as an example of some different variables that you often find in the .env, I mentioned some of this. You know, I'm in a development environment, and you could wrap that in a string in quotes, but you don't have to. What port the app is functioning on. It might, in development, run on one port. In production, run on a separate port. You might have some passwords that you may stick in here. Okay. The reason you do this is you don't want your passwords in your application source code. Okay. If you have to statically configure a password, you don't put that in your application source code. It's considered more secure to put it in this file, your .env file. Okay, so the identifier of our variables is on the left. You're going to notice this is all capitalized, you know, very similar to your constants with underscores in between the letters. So that's the variable convention here, is all caps with underscores in between the words. You know, other variables that are common is like, hey, what's information about your database? Like, what's the URL of the database? What port is the database running on? What's a user and password for the database? What's the database name? Third-party API keys. So if you're like connecting into Stripe, for example, for e-commerce, you store API keys here. Okay, but all I've done here is I've created 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've created 9 variables, and I've put data in each one. Okay, now, next step is to, on my script, I'm going to define my start script. Okay, and this will run node index.js. Now, this approach is a newer approach. If you watch some of my old videos, I probably don't use this approach because this is only about a year or two old, right? This is an easier approach for working with .env files. And what I'm going to do here is include a switch, which is pointing out my env file is named .env. Okay, so I put a switch here that will allow me basically to read the variables out of that file. Okay, and so again, newer approach, I want to say 23, 24 time frame, where you used to have a dependency that would allow you to do that. So now that we have that, and let me kind of change this up here, http://localhost:/port. And if I run my start script with npm run, okay, we're not doing anything besides hello world. Okay, but I want to show you how to now read the data out. Instead of responding with hello world, I'll put a little template string in here. And this is process.env variable name. So in this case, if you want to read your secret key out into here, paste in secret key. Okay, obviously this is not something you would necessarily do, is take your password and put it in a GET request, but nonetheless, if I close this and I boot it back up with the run script, and I click on localhost 3000, you can see I put data in and I pull data out into the .env file. And so again, basic theory here, we're putting some variables in here. These are sensitive variables that contain like your connection string information, maybe some passwords, some usernames, some port numbers. What else is there worth knowing? If I change something in here, like check out how I changed my secret key.
3 exclamation points.
With a few extra exclamation points. If you change your .env file, even if you're running nodemon, you need a hard close of the server and reboot. Okay, so if it's not like other files when you're running nodemon and you change your source code, it's able to kind of hot reload the information. When you change a value in your .env, you have to hard close the app down and boot it back up to get the data kind of refreshed. If I were to just maybe do that and click save and I don't refresh, notice I'm refreshing the page here, but it doesn't update the page because I haven't rebooted the server. Okay, so we are going to be working with .env files. There's more to it, but I just wanted to show you a very basic put data in, pull data out, and what kind of information typically goes in to this file that stores data, that stores variables. All good? Questions? All good.